I'm a big Pixel fan. Pixel 4a, is was supposed to have been out in the spring. It got pushed, and now we're starting to see, from a lot of the publications that we're basically going to get a Pixel 4a, a Pixel 4a 5G, and a Pixel 5. Now, this would be the time where I would kind of pick at Google and complain because, man, it's like when you look at what's going to be on the Pixel 5, it's like they're going backwards, it feels like. At least what we're seeing in publications that instead of the under-glass fingerprint sensor that a number of phones have, they're going back to the old school fingerprint scanner that's been on like the Pixel 4. Actually, I take that back, correction. And the Pixel 3 and the Pixel 2. Actually, I'm going to say the first Pixel as well. But at this point, I want to say, really? This is where we at? And even though I really want to get a little bit frustrated with Google when I look at the simple fact that we are looking at a phone that I feel like technology-wise is taking a step backwards, at least hardware-wise, based on what we're seeing so far. I have to be honest. I'm looking at this in sort of a positive note, and hear me out, because I know I've been a big critic of the Pixel phone because I feel like since the launch of the Pixel, it has been a decline over the years of where the Pixel line should be and what we got. But with that said, those of us who've been around these Google phones for a while, we've been back then when we had the Nexus phones. You remember that period when you had the Galaxy Nexus, and the Galaxy Nexus was basically a flop. So much of a flop that Google basically denounced this phone, saying it basically wasn't their phone. Even though, if you look at the previous Nexus, it was basically made by Samsung. So we believe that this was the true successor to that Samsung Nexus, the Galaxy Nexus. But it had issues with LTE, and a lot of people had complaints with it. I had issues with it. I went through like 2 or 3 of them trying to make it work because I was a big Nexus fan. I was waiting for the first Verizon Nexus. I wanted it to work. Trust me, I really wanted this thing to work, and it didn't because, the signal was horrible. The radios were really, really bad, and during that period, they basically threw a softball across the plate and just said, look, let's back away from LTE for a second. Let's get this right. Let's build this phone correctly. And they came out with the Nexus 4, the glass back design. And a lot of people like that phone said, finally, it's made by LG. It was a good looking phone. Like the only complaint people had was it didn't have LTE. But again, for Google, they decided to take a step back, allow them to, get an extra year to allow LTE to catch up, to get some more LTE radios. And then once we got the Nexus 5, we could say arguably we got one of the best Nexus to date. So much so that Google tried to repeat the Nexus 5 magic. And what I'm kind of hoping, or just kind of, say hoping, but being optimistic for, is that this is a year right now. If we look at where we at, with COVID-19 shutting down a number of industries, causing a headache for a lot of people right now, shutting people indoors, causing states to shut down. It's really been a challenging time for a number of people, for the economy. And basically right now, having a high-end smartphone may not be at the forefront for a lot of people. Yes, we need devices to do our job, but we really don't need that top-end phone. So Google putting out a cheaper phone may end up benefiting them in the long run for this year. This may be the phone that's their lob, that their softball, that allowed them to step back for a minute, give them an easy phone for the public to jump on board, and price it just right. It does what it needs to do. Obviously, it's not meant to have all the bells and whistles that all these other phones have. It's meant to be an easy throw across the plate. And I'm hoping that they use this period to step back for a second and really regroup. Think about what's working, because again, they're in the same market as these other carriers. They have access to the same hardware as these other manufacturers out there. So this would be a great time to step back, regroup, and give us a Pixel 6 that really, really lives up. Like the comeback phone, pseudo the Nexus 5. Because if they come back with the Pixel 6 and that thing just rocks like people are hoping, and it's a year from now where hopefully the economy has recovered, things are starting to get back to normal, and this is the phone that they're presenting, they can very well benefit from that. So even though right now, looking at the fact that we're going to get a Pixel 4a, a Pixel 4a 5G, and a Pixel 5 without a Pixel 5 XL, because I'm not going to lie, it's like, out of all the phones that you leave out, you don't have an XL model, even though last year the Pixel 4 XL was the phone that, was more recommended than the Pixel 4 because the battery life wasn't there. I really was like, okay, it doesn't make sense that you guys would leave out of an XL. But if you're looking at the price standpoint, you're trying to make it a more affordable phone for people to pick up, make it easier for people to buy, it makes sense depending on how you price it. Because it's going to be very, very interesting to see how you price that. Because the Pixel 4a, if you did like $399 for the Pixel 4a, $499 for the 4a 5G, and maybe $699 for the Pixel 5, it may be something that people be more willing to pick up. And we're seeing right now people are more gravitating more towards the budget phones right now. This is the year for that as we wait for the economy to recover. So they may be in a better position right now to gobble up more customers than someone like a Samsung and an Apple, even though they're going to present better phones this year. But again, it's going to be a matter of whether they can convince people to come to stores and pick up their phone versus the other two, especially when it feels like this phone is really taking a step back when you look at the overall hardware design. It really do feel like, man, you guys are really looking backwards and not looking forward. And this is something that when we think of Google's phones, like a Nexus, a Pixel, we've always expected them to be looking forward and not backwards. And, the phone that, when you think about Nexus, that was originally meant to be an example for other manufacturers to look forward to model after of what an Android phone can be. Like that was originally the point of the Nexus. To be at this point where we're at now, we're looking at Pixel phones like they're not forward thinking at all. And if the Nord end up having the under glass fingerprint sensor, end up having a lot of the bells and whistles that some of these modern phones have, the question is going to be, unless this Pixel is really, really priced very, very competitively, why would people go out and buy this phone outside of the fact of those of us who may be Pixel fans?